Hey friends, today I would like to talk a little more about one of my favorite models for self-understanding. It's also a very powerful tool for understanding the world around us and the way things work. I didn't make it up, but I certainly love it, and I want to apply it by analogy and example today to the spiritual path and also to relationships. So hang in there. So what is this amazing model of self-understanding? Well, if you follow my work, you know I am a huge fan of the concept of yin-yang. Now, we've all seen the kind of black and white swirling paisley pieces with a little bit of black in the white and a little bit of white in the black. It's a circle, and we see it on kids' textbooks and dogs' collars and keychains and things like that. But what a lot of us don't remember or recognize is that this is actually an ancient philosophy, and more than that, it really comes out of a kind of science. So we find that yin-yang has been a part of Chinese culture, medicine, and tradition for over 3,000 years. Now, when we say yin-yang, first of all, you have to think of it as the energy of the universe, right? The energy of the created world. And as such, it is all things, it is in all things. All things have yin-yang qualities. All things have yin-yang operating within them. Nothing can exist without it. So yin-yang can be applied to seasons. It can be applied to my dog running here through the forest. It can be applied to what you ate for breakfast and how you're feeling in this moment. In Chinese medicine, often we talk about an excess of yin or an excess of yang, and that's not just in the whole body, but even in a specific organ or system of the body. So the first thing we're trying to get clear here is that everything operates by the principle of yin-yang, because everything is ultimately energy and has two aspects. What we might call in English masculine, which has nothing to do with males or men. It is masculine, the active, outgoing, doing kind of energy. In excess, we associate it with conquest and colonization and dominance. But in balance, it is adventuring and inventing and defending and protecting. It's wonderful when it's in balance. The other side, of course, is what we would call in English the feminine, which again has nothing to do with females or femininity. The feminine principle in this case, and it is the complement of the masculine, which is receiving, gestating, nurturing. It is process, not outcome. It is collective, not individual. It is inwardly focusing, not outwardly reaching. And again, in balance, this is an important part of life, and we all need these qualities, but in excess, it can lead to stuckness. It can lead to stagnancy. It can lead to fearfulness. So all things, all relationships, all things have the yin-yang principles within them. Okay, we got that clear now. Let's move on to the illustrations. Very often in the spiritual path, people are torn between where to put their focus. Do I focus on philosophy and worldview? Like, do I need to understand it all to feel at peace? Or do I need to invest and engage in practices? Is it about doing yoga or going to church or praying or meditating, whatever? Or is it about having the right theology, the right explanation, the right worldview or ideas? I'm getting caught on all the branches here. Well, when I find myself trying to make a decision or pick a side, I remember the yin-yang philosophy, which is It is both. It is both the practice and experience and how we make sense of it and find meaning. So I think of yin as being the practice side because it's embodied. And then I think of yang as the philosophy side, the wisdom and the insights because it's intellectual. What's important about applying yin yang to this dynamic of the spiritual path is it reminds us that it's not an evaluative model, it's a discerning model. Now, evaluative means practice is bad, philosophy is good, or philosophy is bad and practice is good. But that's not really what yin yang is about. It's about balance and success in life. Success meaning what works, what's sustainable, what functions well and long. So it's more accurate to think of what is enough. Do you have enough of this in balance with enough of that? And sometimes we have too much of something and not enough of another. Now, the reason why I like the language of enough or too much or too little, excess and deficiency, is because they are terms that refer to something functional, something experiential, something practical, and something ultimately purely contextual and subjective. I like that because the problem we run into in life is when we try to make the subjective objective and the personal universal. In other words, my favorite restaurant should be everyone's favorite restaurant. My idea of parenting should be everyone's idea of parenting. My idea of what is a good time or what is kind or polite should be everyone's idea of what is kind or polite, and that's a problem. The only thing we really need to figure out for ourselves day to day and in our spiritual lives as well is, do we have enough of each of the essential factors? And it's true that in some moments of life, we're going to need more explaining and more philosophy and more intellectual engagement. And in other moments, we're going to need to just get out of our heads and just in the being of things, in the experience of things. Now, the last place I want to finish with an analogy or an illustration is relationships, because it's important to recognize that it's very difficult, particularly in intimate relationships and personal relationships, to express our needs with others without making them feel other or wrong. If someone, for example, has a tendency towards anger or sadness or waking up in the morning and being bright and shiny or waking up in the morning and being crabby and slow, for them, that's normal and acceptable. And probably for them, anyone who can't accept the way they are is probably wrong or too reactive or too sensitive or impatient. It's completely different from both sides. In some moments of struggle in the relationship, each thinks the other is wrong. Well, that's not a productive way to communicate. So we move into the yin and yang, and we communicate by talking about what we need, what we're experiencing, what's too much, and what's not enough. So we might say, there's too much activity in the house in the morning for me. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I need a quieter house in the morning. Too much for me. Or, in my case, the opposite. Hey folks, there's not enough activity in the morning. I'd like to put some music on. I'd like to see some smiles. I'd like to get moving. Well, that might not be possible, but then we can have a dialogue. It's not about making something right or wrong. It's just about owning our experience. Well, we're just about out of time, so I'm going to leave it there and ask you to consider today, whatever you struggle with, where's the excess, where's the deficiency, and who do you need to communicate to? Maybe it's yourself. What have you got enough of, and what do you need more of? Thanks.